Welcome, Fablers, to the official start of your weekend. This is, of course, Fawks Talks, the only show on the Fable 42 Network devoted to all the other shows on the Fable 42 Network, where we build community through friendship, gaming, and chaos. I'm your host, Ronan Fox. With me, as always, is Cody. Say hello, Cody.
Hello, hello.
And, of course, Mr. Chris Solo. Say hello, Chris.
Hello, Chris.
Perfect. If this is your first time here joining us on the show, welcome. Glad to have you. This is a show where we take a factual look back at the week's campaigns and then put a Fawks twist on all the choices that were made. Tonight, we sit down with our special guests, April Hill and Justin Navarre. I think I said that right. Looking ahead to tonight, we look at Vault 42, where we learn just how desperate people are to have someone to love. And on Legends of Shah Ghul, we take a look at just how desperate people are to have someone to love. And on Realms, for a change of pace, we learn just how desperate dragons are for someone to love. Similar themes this week. Mere coincidence, but interesting nonetheless. Before we get into all that, though, let's go through some sponsors and announcements. First up is Griffin Coat. So everything that you see on those campaign streams that is 3D printed is brought to you by Griffin Co. So shout out to them. And then the campaign streams are Vorpal powered. So all the audio digital displays, all the digital dice, player indicators, all that sort of stuff is brought to you by Vorpal Board. So shout out to them as well. Other mentions, as always, we are on Patreon. So if you want to find out how to support us, just follow the links there. You guys can get access to content that's related to all of those campaigns and additional shows like the lore show that we had mentioned before. So check that out. And then also we have a Ko-Fi. So if you want to figure that out, also follow the links there to figure out how to support us that way. And then all of our shows are on video demand on Twitch, but we are sort of transitioning to a YouTube center focus. So check out our videos there. I know the mini question answers are up on there, a lot of them, including mine. So check that out. Like, subscribe, comment, do all the YouTubey things. And I think that's it. So with that, I still have no idea what I'm doing. You have nothing better to do. So let's start some Fawks Talks. Cody, hit me with that intro.
Copy that.
Are we back? You're just going to leave me hanging out there? Okay, awesome. Awesome. Welcome back. So yeah, excited for the show tonight. How's everybody doing? Chat good? Chat's running. Awesome. Thank you for spending your evening with us. Talk about a couple things this past week. It's been good for us. Ow, my headphone just fell out. Feeling a lot better than I was last week, so hopefully I don't need like a lozenge or anything to get through the show tonight. That was terrible. I apologize for that. I don't know what's going on with you guys. Cody, how was your week?
Pretty good. Still on the puppy training train. So
yeah. You
Just
said
sleeping
your
through the
cat
night
was still adjusting.
yeah, or yelling, whatever you want to call it.
It's fair. We have two cats, and that was terrifying.
It's that low growl moan that lets you know she's not happy.
Everything's going well.
Yeah.
Solo, I didn't ask you that last week, but how was your week this week? I know you got a lot going on. So.
Yeah, just building a studio. The studio's up at about probably it's up functioning enough to where I can actually do stuff. But there's still a lot of organizing and prepping and cleaning and all that. But I'll be streaming Vault tomorrow from this new studio. Very excited.
Oh, really? So this will be your first official stream from
there,
first
stream from this new studio will be tomorrow night.
Ooh, that's exciting.
Yeah.
And hopefully everything goes well.
Well, I don't have to be on camera, so it's good.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair. Cool. Well, I did a lot this week. I was telling them before the show started, I got scheduled my tattoo appointment, so I'm super excited about that. So February 17th, we will continue the sleeve. I got mildly obsessed with this game called Genshin Impact. I don't know if you guys have either one of you played that, but
I hadn't heard of that one.
When you say continue to sleeve, did the sleeve start?
The tattoo sleeve, which is the only sleeves I appreciate.
So that the one tattoo that you have is considered a sleeve now, and you're
No, I said I'm going to continue. It's going to be a sleeve.
Got it. It's going to be, but you said continuing a sleeve.
Shut up. I hate you. Listen, I got this thing in when did I get this? August, September of right before the
Sure,
COVID stuff
sure.
hit in January. So and it just never went. I never went back. So there's
That's fine.
plans. Damn
Yeah.
it.
I mean, I have them too, but like I wouldn't say I'm continuing a sleeve. But yeah,
Yeah, my sleeve took 13 hours, and it's just a quarter sleeve.
Well, shut up. Just listen. You got baby steps. You got to start somewhere, right?
no,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
only teasing because I have two tattoos on either side, and eventually we do half sleeves, but
Yeah,
they're
I got
they're not
plans for
sleeves.
sleeves on both arms, but
Yeah, they're not
whatever.
sleeves. Yeah,
Shut up. I got plans to start a sleeve. How about that?
I
I
appreciate
have
you
one
go.
tattoo, and now I'll
You've taken the right step.
There you go.
I hate both of you guys. Mute both of you. Okay. So looking ahead towards this week, not tattoo related. We have Monster of the Week. That's right after this show. That'll be the first episode of that. DM'd by our very own amazing Jason Russell. And then next week we have the first Wizards graduation next Friday. So that'll be Silverthorn. So tune into that. I'm sure it'll just be a very simple graduation with no hijinks whatsoever. Yeah. So check that out. And I think that's pretty much all the big stuff we got going on so far. So let's go ahead and get started. Tonight we have a Vault 42 episode with our guest April Hill, who plays the Overseer, who is the Overseer. She doesn't play one. And Justin Navarre, who plays the Wastelander fighter Marcus. And as we all know, the Fable 42 campaigns are all about the choices that were made. So let's start Ronan's recap and see how they did. And real quick, before I start, I noticed somebody in chat asked about my eyes. Yes, they've always been blue. And beautiful. Okay, so first up, as always, Vault 42. We are on episode 7, Love Never Dies. Debatable. We start off on the edge of a fight, like a young liberal couple visiting their boomer-in-laws for the holidays. The Wastelanders, led by Marcus, are making their way towards the screams coming from the direction of Hannah's house. Upon running out, they find the cellar doors open, turrets off, Hannah prone on the ground, and a large glowing ghoul over her. She cries out for them not to hurt Harrison, which, as you'll remember, is her former husband. But Petra, fresh out of Fawks, those anyway, whacks him with her cleaver. We didn't have a battle map, but April decided or described it as running up to Harry's large glowing figure, which really paints an amazing, if not slightly pornographic, picture. Tipper, seemingly using the flirtation advice from earlier, rushes up to put her hands on Harry's body, but sends a different kind of shock through his system. This while Clay tries his best Ronin impression. Not me, but like a actual samurai. Marcus tries to help Hannah a bit more directly by pulling her to safety. He grabs her wrist, but with a low grunt and a loud fart, he only manages to pop old fragile bones. Hannah pulls her hand back, probably after snickering at the limp noodle that is Marcus. Ash, also known as Sasha Banks, does an enziguri into a chokehold with her, quote, bulging thighs. The assault continues as Petra hits Harry and runs back towards Clay. They're currently arguing, but we all know what happens when they finally make up. Some hardcore manga reading. Probably. I mean, it is Clay we're talking about. Speaking of Clay, he continues his shonen-style attack before Harry's Sasunu lays him out, damn near killing him. And I realized that joke was niche. It was really only meant for Jordan, Taryn, and Cody. Marcus tries once again to pull Hannah back to safety. And this time, with his muscles bulging, he manages to muster the strength to help an old lady cross the yard. Ash tried to wrestle Harry to the ground, but is unsuccessful. She gets even more angry, but I have a feeling that she's sort of into it, if you know what I'm saying. Petra goes back to cleaver chopping, busting open pus-filled wounds on Harry's body. Who knew that being exposed to radiation mimics symptoms one could get from a regret-filled weekend? Tipper tosses Clay a much-needed health pack, while Harry starts to lash out at the ash hole. And that sounds gross. Maybe I should use that nickname a bit more sparingly. Eventually, Marcus pulls Hannah away and she pleads with them to stop their attack. She tells him that she had locked Harry up 3 months ago before he turned, just because she couldn't bring herself to kill him. She's convinced that maybe he needs some rest and a bit of razor grain mush, like putting a band-aid on gonorrhea. Hannah continues to struggle against Marcus and actually gets away a few times, as it is evident why Marcus uses a gun, like the guy who uses a stepladder to get up into his truck. But in the end, he manages to scramble up the rungs and keep a hold of the frail old lady who had previously served him tea. While he wrestles an old lady, the rest of the party is dealing with the actual threat, as Petra goes to strike out at Harry again. Tipper continues to shock Harry, not like pulling her skin off shock, but like with actual electricity. And Clay, now held up, continues to go full Bushido. Ash then manages to pin Harry and is finally in the position she desires. I mean, we're all certain she's a dom, right? She then demands someone toss her some rope so that she can continue her 50 Shades of attack. Marcus spies the chain that had once held the cellar door shut. He attempts to toss her the chains, but must be pretty fatigued from his geriatric battle, and only manages an unimpressive toss, allowing the chain to go limp. A running theme with this fighter. At this point, Hannah pulls out the turret controls. Her blood runs as cold as Tanya's the night she abandoned Clay, as she debates annihilating the group where they stand. However, Tipper, seeing this, throws her magnetic key to knock it from her grasp, allowing Clay to run and pick it up. This leaves Petra to focus on the ghoul. Whoop, I lost my lights. This leaves Petra to focus on the ghoul. She focuses and hones in on Harry's giggle stick. You know, his love muscle. His womb broom. Anyway, she takes a precision shot at the groin, okay? As opposed to a precision shot from the groin, which is a very different thing. Harry, tired of these attacks, unleashes a radiation burst, covering the group in a cloud of month-old baby diaper. Marcus, of course, quickly passes out, and all goes dark. Not because he's dead, but because Justin hit his camera on the way down, and it was really funny. Tipper and Clay both take shots at the pus-covered Harry, but the living STD is still standing. Ash tries to smash Harry's face, but her rage is similar to Jinx's condition, which causes blurred double vision. So she misses. She can't finish the job, and Hannah limps up to Harry. As the name of the episode suggests, love never dies. Unless you're Kizana and Magnus, because that story's going to end in a fucking bloodbath. In the end, it comes full circle, and the one that started it all will end it. Petra goes full crazy, beating that meat into oblivion. Hannah tries to get Petra off, but is unable to get the job done. She won't stop until she is once again wearing an outside ensemble of insides. Not to fear, however, Clay will run up to Petra to console her with his bare chest, which has a calming effect on her as she cops a feel. Tipper heals Marcus right before it was completely lights out, and he wastes no time in immediately starting to berate poor Hannah for keeping Harry a secret. Like the time my dad woke up from heart surgery just to tell me that he had to keep on living to see if I would ever stop being a failure. Hannah just wants them to leave the farm, understandably upset that they just murdered the walking corpse that she used to have sex with. And of course, the Ashhole sees this as a perfect time to demand more money for their services. But Hannah stands her ground, feeling like she could have saved him, which seems a bit crazy, like trying to uncut the grass. Ash, pissed off, heads back towards the barn, while Tipper pilfers Hannah's gun, and I cannot think of a worse person to have a gun. Well, maybe one, but we'll get to that in a second. The others eventually head back to the barn as well, but not before Marcus tries to make Hannah feel better by offering her aid in Harry's burial. Surprisingly, the soothing tones of a straight-laced wastelander who barely has the strength to lift his arm to tip his cap does not accomplish much, as she will have none of it. Back at the barn, Ash, upset by the lack of help during the fight, complains about being surrounded by morons, which is like the fat guy being mad at other people's progress in his weight loss meetings. The group will then lay down to continue their night's rest as Marcus returns to his post. He sees the widow grieve for a time, but eventually goes to her house to get her dog, shovels, and a floating spherical robot with 3 mechanical arms that appears to be aiding her in the task of putting her beloved to rest. the beloved that mysteriously was infected by a random barrel of radiative material. Yes, I'm still on that Black Widow train. Don't at me. And so that's where we are with that. So that is Vault 42. Kind of left a little hanging. They still technically have a task from Hannah to return to Rita. We don't really know how Hannah feels about that, but it seems like that's probably what they're going to do next. But who knows? This group is a bit, crazy. So we'll see what they decide to do. And so in order to do that, tune in tomorrow. Okay, so next up is Legends of Shao Gal, episode 11, Lend Me a Hand, because Diane. So after a fun night of partying with the Corwedron, we pick up with the Legends interrupting the tiny cult party. The small figures in a large huddle whispering frantically, like my elementary school when pogs were a thing. These hundreds of gnomes and dwarves whispering as they stand around a column of hands and eyes, moving the gaze to the group as they discuss what they should do. Move on and leave these pale deformed creatures behind, or investigate why they are like this. The group is obviously freaked out a bit, and the whole scene is just super awkward. Like that time I walked in on my parents. No, never mind. I'm not going to go there. Frizz in particular is losing his composure, on the verge of a rash decision before the others try to convince him it's a bad idea. But it's like trying to convince Jinx that she should stop after just a fifth. As they take a moment to ponder their options, the baby-sized demons open a tunnel that leads to the right of the column. Rex goes first. I want to say bravely, but it could just be his newly inflated ego. He is followed by Jinx, then Frizz and Oscar, Manta and Daffodil not far behind. As the Legends make their way past the pale gnomes and dwarves, they get a good look at them with their super pale, waxy skin, milky eyes, and thinning hair. Like my grandpa when he was up in hospice. Then, Frizz recognizes one of the builders from Mythjaw. Horbus? Or something like that. It's not important. Dude's a vegetable. About as useful as Rex in a fist fight. But that doesn't stop Frizz from trying. Rex understands the language whispered by these wee ones who are essentially praying to Vecna, because apparently giving up your hand and eye just ain't quite enough. Rex walks forward, looking at the column, and sees a bowl sitting on the altar. The bowl appears to be collecting fluids from these body parts that are affixed to the column. Just bits and juices. Like, what the actual fuck, Diane? This is playing out less like a D&D game and more like a Netflix documentary. Rex then hears a voice in his head, telling him to give an offering, being propositioned to cut off his hand. Hard for him to do prayer hands if one is missing. But instead, with his new confidence, decides to shoot an Eldritch Blast at the column and calls out the Whispered One. Real badass for someone who is still yet to be in a proper fight. Lots of things change the first time you get punched in the nose. And in return, he once again takes whisper damage and is paralyzed as presumably Vecna offers a trade. With just his hand, Rex can experience sweet release. Yeah, that's right. Jinx and Daffodil both try to help, but get paralyzed. Rex then offers to save them all in exchange for an offering. He decides to give up some blood instead of his hand, which is like that one house that passes out fucking taffy for Halloween. I mean, yeah, technically it's candy, but come on. We then learn that it's actually the Necromancer and is compelling Rex to give more. Basically turning into one of those passive-aggressive blood drive posters. You could be a hero today. Rex gives more blood from his wrists to free Jinx and Daffodil. Rex sees the Necromancer and then seems pretty pissed that he has to deal with the assistant manager. And they get into an argument about how each is loved more by Daddy Vecna. The Necromancer senses Rex's idol and feels inadequate and demands they leave. Meanwhile, Frizz has been trying to get a hold of Horbus's attention, who has continued to whisper and gaze at Rex. He simply refuses to leave Horbus, and all of a sudden I get the feeling that Frizz and Hannah would get along famously. He causes a big fuss and has Oscar pick him up and the Legends all eventually start to leave. Rex then gives another vial of blood, leaving it with one of the Whispering Gnomes, and demands Horbus be released. Horbus stops whispering and goes limp, turning into a Horbius corpus, if you will. Sorry, I'm not sorry. The Legends continue east through Diane's demented den of demons for about an hour before stopping. Hoping to speak with Horbus, the group tries to heal him. Rex really seems to be feeling the effects of it all and can't seem to get his shit together long enough to check on Horbus. Luckily, the possum is there to show him up once again. They learn that the gnome has been drained of fluid, sucked dry, but not like that, you immature heathens. They manage to bring him back from his benign unconsciousness, but he seems confused about where he is, who he's with, and what year it is. And I think I've hit those same cave shrooms before. I once thought I was aboard the Titanic and spent 3 days trying to stay afloat in my bathtub. Anyways, after trying to explain everything to him, he starts to seize up. Wanting to do whatever they can, Frizz, Mata, and Daffodil debate on what's best for Horbus, which is like walking by that one plant you haven't watered in a month and thinking, I'm not digging it up. There's still a chance. In the end, they decide to take Horbus back to the core region. It should be noted, though, that Rex doesn't think that Horbus is worth saving, which may be his first judgment. Our little god is growing up, you guys. Instead, he and Jinx continue east. They speak for a bit. Rex admits to Jinx that he gave up his blood for Daffodil, her, and Horbus, and his soul is now damned, and he didn't even get a sweet banjo out of the deal. Jinx is pissed that he did that without asking, yet expresses her sadness at the fact that eventually Rex will have to leave her once he ascends. And in the end, they agree to stay together until then. During this time, they share a first kiss and a romantic embrace. The drunk and the dude that believes he's a god. It's like both of my dad's personalities fell in love with each other, and that shit is terrifying to think about. Frizz, Mata, and Daffodil make it back to the core region, and I'm going to say this wrong, Diane, sorry. Dragos tries to heal Horbus, which turns into a scene from The Exorcist, as Horbus begins to convulse and speak in tongues. But Dragos manages to clear some of the fog, like drinking a warm beer to cure a hangover. It works. He is able to sever the ties of Vecna, however, he is dying. Horbus was able to talk with both Frizz and Mata for a short while, recognizing both of them from Mythjaw. Horbus tells them of the darkness and the whispers that consumed them. Frizz asks about the bottle tops, and Horbus tells him that they were sharing in the same fate. So there it is. Now everyone in this party, minus Mata, is associated with the shadows as we move one step closer to the psychotic break. Mata vows to tell his family about what had happened to him. Best hope she leaves out some of the more explicit details, like, oh, hey, your dad was a living, soulless husk embalmed with parts of his body removed and died a miserable death. Doesn't really have a sweet ring to it. She then goes full Dr. Kevorkian and helps end Horbus's existence. And if you're wondering how dark this episode is, an awkward kiss and an assisted suicide are the two bright spots. They help bury the gnome, which doesn't take much effort. Small grave and all. Meanwhile, Daffodil hums a song of passing to help usher Horbus to the other side. And is somber, unlike the time at my great-granddad's funeral, where a will dispute turned into a minutes-long brawl and a months-long prison sentence. Instead, the Littles have a very heartwarming funeral and all agree that Vecna must be destroyed in the name of the gnomes. The bottle tops and the fizzy wigs and the fucking fuffle booms and the tinkle tips, I don't know, hell, whatever they call it. Dragos then sends a message to Rex telling him that the little ones are on their way. Rex is a typical teenage melodramatic asshat, and Drago, like a disappointed dad whose son wants to be a YouTuber, tells Rex to basically shut up and wait on his damn friends. Eventually, the Littles catch up to Rex and Jinx, who apparently just sat there for hours waiting. Two completely broken, hormonally charged youths alone with nothing to do. I'm sure they just sat there and discussed current events. And I love long sleeves. The legends reunite once again, and they all agree to do what must be done together. But of course, Rex has to bring the mood down once again, reminding everyone that he will be a god. And what's worse is that Vecna now potentially has his blood. They surround him in reassurance and proclaim that even though he must lie in the bed that he's now made, they will be there lying too. Well, not lying there too with him. That would be weird. Yeah, well, I mean, except for Jinx, I guess she could lie. Never mind. The analogy's lost. Anyways, they continue to head east to find a place to camp for the night before heading on for another 2 days to the something valley. We're going to call it Derverger. I don't know. I have no idea what that's called. Anyway, they're on their way to the next location. They're still headed towards the Black Glacier in search of their first bit on this quest. So this minor hiccup hopefully is past them now. I don't think we need to have a chat. I think I got everything there perfect, Diane. There were no mistakes. So they're on their way. So hopefully after this hiccup, they can make it to their first location and see where we go from there. And that'll be continued on Monday. So tune in then. And I can't hear the sound effects, so I'm going to have to wait until after, I guess, to hear all these things. Okay. So anyway, moving on. We are on, last but not least, Realms of Ukador. That'll be chapter 19, and we are on Misdirection. I'm going to take a drink before we start. At least I'm not dying this week. Oh, I should say, by the way, because I said last week I got tested. I'm negative, so good news there, I guess. Okay, so Realms of Ukador. We pick up this episode following a long rest, which is probably like waking up on January 2nd after your New Year's resolution was to start working out. Sore as fuck and regretting everything. The group wakes up to Kyriel making a pepper dish, bright and chipper, as she was the only one with a sacrificial goose to separate her from the dragon. Tracking this dragon back to the mountains, they come upon a path up through the difficult terrain. But we'll have to walk, so no good buddy mobile on this trip. Eclipse in particular struggles. I'd like to think it has nothing to do with the path, as he is very agile. He's just salty about the fact that they're marching straight towards the dragon that cost Eclipse 2 of his now precious remaining lives. As they continue, they eventually arrive at a tunnel within the mountain, and I'm already having horrific flashbacks of the fucked up caverns of Shah Ghul. It appears that these are the remnants of a tower they had previously destroyed, so it's decided to cautiously explore the Artificer's shaft. Yeah. It seemed safe and showed signs of the dragon clawing through the tunnel, so they went deeper. Keewin's nervous about the lack of light, probably concerned that Roland will use it as another opportunity to accidentally beat the shit out of her. Looking around, they see a bunch of discarded construct pieces, just garbage really, and it's everywhere. Turns out he liked to stuff his hole full of all kinds of junk. Soon they come across an alcove and can't resist the obvious DM temptation, which turns out to be quite fruitful. Nafiko is the first to score loot, she finding a necklace, but at a cost, because this simply wouldn't be a solo treasure room unless every single thing in that room was trapped. This is exactly like the time I snuck into my grandparents' attic, finding a ton of dust-covered trinkets, and ended up in the hospital getting tetanus shots. Then Carrick finds a gun, and this is what I was alluding to earlier. I can't see how this is going to end well. The guy with the rage problem and daddy issues finding a firearm formerly owned by a demented scientist. Ukador should probably look into universal background checks. Anyways, Kai finds a book about bodily health, which I assume is just that sex ed book that you had to read in school. She's about to learn about all the changes that Rex is currently experiencing. Body hair was a trip, man. And speaking of body hair, Eclipse finds a short sword with ravens on it. And once again, Frostguard is accused of something nefarious. We are all living in your all's head rent-free at this point. Keewin will also find a necklace to help with her dexterity, but it'll be a nice little memento for Roland to keep after he inevitably kills her. They also find volume 4 of the Artificer's Notebook. It's full of notes that speak about Victor and vampiric curse. The Artificer was attempting to allow constructs to create life themselves. However, the outcome of these tests continued on to volume 5, which of course, nowhere to be found. Additionally, it spoke of the creation of dragons, including the Rosari heart that was needed to power it. Turns out those things can do more than help Killian get into a teacher's pants. So that's cool. A few additional trinkets are found and picked up, and the party is now completely decked out and geared up, so at least when the dragon kills them, they'll all look fabulous and shiny, and as a bonus, the next set of adventurers will have nice little treasure pile to pick from. Looking around the room a bit more, they see a hatch door. Eclipse opens the hatch door, and of course, it is also trapped with a noxious gas, so it must be the bowels of the Artificer. Once they get into the room, they see beds in a sort of barrack-style setup. Seems weird to trap a door to your bedroom. I mean, in college, I just used to put a tie on the handle, and that seems sufficient. But this is no normal bedroom. It's determined to be designed to keep people in. Like an IKEA, but one that ends in murder instead of delicious meatballs. Additionally, this particular holding cell has a viewing room, presumably to allow the Artificer to peek in on its captives. Fucking jigsaw shit. But at least there wasn't hands plastered to the wall, so, silver lining. Making their way through the area, they next enter an empty cafeteria, and they see small spider-like creatures coming up behind them to clean the mess left by their dirty-ass feet. Eclipse takes a shot at one of the arachnid maids, because fuck those helpers, I guess. But despite being shattered into pieces, it puts itself back together, so it's already emotionally stronger than the vast majority of this party. While they're messing with the harmless housekeepers, Carrot goes on to the next room to find the fucking dragon curled up on a pile of construct bodies, peacefully sleeping, probably dreaming of the artificer. And it just occurs to me that it probably too misses its dad. Him and Carrot should start a support group. But they'll never have a chance, as the good buddies waste no time in picking up their assault. Keywin hits the old tried and true right out of the gate with Fireball. I mean, it worked on the religious temple, why not the dragon? Carrick fires his newly acquired gun. No training required, as apparently all he needs to do is hold it to turn into fucking John Wick. They fan out as each attack in turn. Guiding bolts, fireballs, stabbing, shatters, and gunshots. A veritable player's handbook buffet. Roland granting boons and inspiration to a sister, most likely to be used to avoid one of his future attacks. The dragon does not appear aggressive. Quite the opposite, it seems mopey and wants to be left alone. Emo Dragon just wants to sit in the dark and listen to a little MCR. Nafiko tries to talk to the dragon, which I guess is like her half-sibling. So, maybe they got a connection. Some of the group is ready to kill the dragon for what it did to the town. But the dragon comes back hard at the group, claiming that they too have killed. And thanks to Keywin, the tether to the artificer has been released, and it just wants to be left alone. And it does not want to be forced to defend them. It's about this time that we learn the dragon, feminine in nature, was once an ancient dragon in a new body and is now protecting something that turns out to be a mechanical egg. And we've entered the science fiction section of the What the Fuck Museum. She's willing to die for this Cadbury construct, and it slowly starts to hatch before them all. Once free, it appears to be a golden dragon, and Nafiko starts to piece together exactly who she may have been. The dragon vows not to harm the town and just wants to leave with her wormling child. So like the opposite of Rex's mom. Oh shit, Clay's mom. Man, that's like the second time I've ever messed that up. Whatever. One of Jordan's character's parents. All right, cool. Whatever. They make peace with the creature and then help it come up with a name to call herself. Me and Solo have been talking about this for like an hour, so here we go. My vote for the name was Deathwing, but obviously there might have been some infringement issues, so they settle on Solo. What is it?
You can do it. Do it.
Fragile. I don't know. Hell, it must be Italian.
Fajuel.
Whatever. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. All right. Anyway. All right. Cool. What he said. As they recede back into the way they came, Eclipse wants to track down the spider maidens. His cat Curiosity refusing to allow him to ignore the tiny skittering beasts. He tracks them coming from a 2-inch hole. And well, if he fits, he sits. But unfortunately for him, his curiosity will have to remain unfulfilled because this Garfield has been hidden in the kibble a bit too hard. Instead, they send Tyvar, and after describing what's below, it has decided to smash their way in. Because with a dragon they had previously tried to kill them still in the next room, and the threat of Pyriel looming all around, and the marching armies of Argul, figuring out how the maids get around an abandoned prison definitely seems like the best use of their time. Once they get down there, they see more peaceful constructs just going about their damn business, loading up minecarts helmed by Duragar. Carrick immediately senses them as a threat. A little racist, but whatever. As the cart begins to move, they make a quick decision to jump in hot pursuit of the Duragar, who, as a reminder, are just going about their day's work. The leader of the Duragar, who I assume is named Doc, has this train of fucking moving as they try to jump cars with this thing traveling at 100 miles an hour. The group struggles, as they aren't dexterous, apparently, like a bunch of deer on frozen pond. As they finally start to make progress atop these cars, they quickly start to approach a tunnel. It's narrow and scary, and they have to duck and try to get inside the cars. But let's just consider ourselves lucky that this wasn't Legends, because that shit would have played out like a scene from Willy Wonka. Speaking of Diane, Keywin tries to jump to a car and misses, now dangling from the cart. I'm sure Roland thought he could have just ended it there. But Nafiko helps her to safety. They all manage to get inside the car except for Nafiko, but she is saved by Roland, who dimensioned doors to save her. So to recap, he saved Nafiko, not Keywin. Within the carts, they meet a construct. Not sure of his name, but he seems like a Kermit to me for some reason. They learn that they are headed towards the castle in the north, owned by Pyriel, meaning these goofballs stumbled in the completely right direction. They're like a group of Mr. Beans. Unsure they are ready for such an endeavor, though, they ask about stopping the train, but the construct seems unbothered by this notion. They bounce a few theories around that might derail the train, never contemplating the fact that they would be in the middle of this train wreck, which is actually beautiful symbolism for their lives up until this point. The conversation then turns to the defenses of the train, which reminds the construct that these good buddies are actually trespassing currently, and is now more than happy to let them see the defenses up close. And the episode ends with several construct waking around the group, grabbing Nafiko as the train rapidly approaches the home of Pyriel. So that's where we are with that. Obviously, they have an immediate threat, which is the train itself. But eventually that train will stop, and then they'll have a whole new set of threats. So interesting to see how that's going to play out. So that is it. That is all of the recaps. You guys are officially caught up on the goings-ons. So I guess we will go ahead and take like a little 5-minute break. Go ahead and enter raffle into the chat to go to the mid-show giveaway, and we will see you here in just a second.